everybody, welcome to another episode of Cape Town. It's a superhero podcast about superhero things. I am Tyler Huckabee.
I'm Hannah Mezzell.
And I'm Ryan Hamm.
And this week we are talking about Loki. We last week, if you caught last episode, we did a deep dive into the really, probably I'd say maybe an ill-advised 10-minute deep dive into about 1,000 centuries of Loki. 1,000 centuries, not quite, but that would be. But a lot of Loki lore going back to the very early to Norse folklore, up through his Marvel Comics appearances and through today. Today, Ryan and Hannah are here, and we're going to be talking a little bit about some of his comic book appearances and what we're expecting from the show, which is going to be coming out the Wednesday after you all hear this, I think, if all goes according to plan. But we will get into that. There's a lot to talk about there, obviously. But first, we are going to talk about a few news items. There's quite a bit of Marvel, kind of interesting Marvel news this week, and then DC has one or two things. The first thing, Hannah, you said you hadn't seen any of Hulu's new MODOK show that is starring and I think created by or produced by Patton Oswalt, or he was involved in the writer's room in some capacity.
I haven't seen it, although it has been advertised to me on several different platforms, aggressively.
Their SEO targeting has right between the eyes.
Yes, we are the target.
And they can't even get you. They haven't. Well, you've been too busy with Mare of Easttown for any other show.
Oh, Lord, yeah. I'm recovering right now emotionally. Are we all caught up?
I haven't seen any of it.
Yeah, I am. We won't pivot into a Mare of Easttown fan podcast, but it's close.
Okay, maybe.
I might just have to do it tonight. Now that it's all out of the way, maybe I'll get to that.
Yeah, it's only 7 hours. Just knock it out.
It's one of those.
It's worth it. You could do it in one night, man. Yeah. It's that good.
All right. Hannah, your tweets were very about it. Were the thing that made me more than anything really interested in seeing it, because you talked about.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You gave it a hard sell.
Oh, I mean, it's real. I have to say that all the hype that anyone has been saying about it, honestly, it's deserved. It is just excellent television. I was talking to Justin, my husband, about this last night. And I think this doesn't spoil too much, but it's actually quite. It's a murder, drama. It's quite wholesome. The sentiment and the tone of it is wholesome, which surprised me.
It's all part of the Gene Smartaissance.
Yes. Oh, Gene Smart.
Yeah. The Cape Town podcast is very pro Gene Smart. We've talked about her a couple of times.
Yeah.
I think off book, but I do like her. I am interested in. I honestly just haven't. I feel like the hour-long drama thing, I'm finding less and less time in my life for, which was at least part of the appeal to watching MODOK. You can knock those out in 25 minutes.
Yeah, little 25-minute guys.
So have you guys seen them?
I watched about 3.
Okay, I've only seen the first episode. I think it's pretty funny. I think it definitely, you can tell it's made by the Robot Chicken people. Mm-hmm. A lot of the animation looks really similar, and even some of the kind of scattershot. Sometimes it veers a little too into Family Guy territory for my taste, where it's just sort of these non sequiturs piled on top of each other. But then, I think other times it's pretty funny. And Patton Oswalt is great as the voice, and Ben Schwartz is in it too, is MODOK's kids, or MODOK's son. So it's got a great voice cast. It's pretty funny. The thing I particularly liked was that it is sort of a running joke that AIM is very stupid, which I think has been needed to have been talked about for a long time. So I liked that.
They do it. They do a good. They use AIM as a way to sort of skewer corporate, corporate tech bro culture.
Yeah.
In some ways that I found pretty entertaining. I would agree. I would say that I'm so far generally enjoying it, and we'll probably finish it. It wasn't quite the slam dunk that. I think the joke, it's one of those, there's a gag a second. So they're flying fast and furious at you. And I would say they're probably hitting for me right now at a 60-40 hit to miss ratio.
Yeah.
Is this an adult only show?
Yeah.
Or
it's pretty teens? Violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty violent. It's not quite as gleefully unhinged as maybe some Robot Chicken stuff gets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Family
I think
Guys
is actually
good. Family Guy's a pretty good comparison. Probably it's not quite as anarchistic,
and I think
maybe.
that's kind of what hurts it, is that it's not as unhinged, because you can see like they want to, but then there's like the Disney leash that like hinders them, I think, from going as far as they could. But I mean, I sort of understand that too, because then I also, part of the reason I was interested in it was because I read that it's canon in the MCU, which is wild.
Apparently it's being considered. This is in the MCU timeline.
Is it in its own like world? Is it like in another reality?
Probably, but they haven't explicitly said that. Like Iron Man makes an appearance. He's voiced by John Hamm in a pretty short cameo.
Yeah.
And it does go, like, there is a narrative thread. Like they are kind of following Modoc's like surprisingly normal marriage to this wannabe Instagram influencer who seems like a genuinely good person who, for reasons unknown, supports her husband's evil schemes to overthrow the world, but doesn't seem to be a supervillain herself. She just is. She's like a homemaker living with the kids, and there's a lot of really good stuff in it. I can't help but compare it to the Harley Quinn show, Hannah, that you and I have watched a lot of, and it really suffers in comparison to Harley Quinn, which pulls off a lot of the same.
Totally unhinged, by the way.
Yeah, completely
like
unhinged.
Yeah.
But I think also Harley Quinn can deliver on really emotional relationship moments when it wants to, and frequently does. And this show might be able to get there, but it did not immediately grab me as that it didn't seem quite as smart or quite as maybe it feels like Harley Quinn does have a little bit longer leash to really go after some of the stuff that it's parodying, and you kind of can feel the suits at Disney pulling MODOK back a little bit, saying we have to protect these characters for the summer movies. But I would say I'm saying the things I don't like about it, even though there were quite a few things that I did.
Is it just one episode out right now?
They dropped the whole season, I think.
Oh, the whole.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the whole season.
I didn't think that Hulu did that. I thought Hulu was like run by the.
I think you
cable
could
overlords.
binge it all tonight. If you wanted
okay.
to.
So this is like it's complete now. So we're okay. These are fully formed opinions now. Okay.
Yeah. Another thing, speaking of movies, we did get our first like full Eternals trailer, which it's been a couple weeks now because it came out right after we recorded the last episode with all of you guys. And now we've all seen it. What'd you think?
I like that I still have no idea what the movie's about.
Yeah. It's definitely a teaser.
Yeah, yeah.
It's more a look and feel to you, because the look and feel is pretty distinctive.
Yeah, and I mean that's what stuck out. That's what stuck out to me the most, I think, is just like, you know, you can tell that like those wide sweeping vista shots that Chloe Zhao kind of, you know, really used in Nomadland, like that's clearly being used here. It almost reminded me of Arrival a little bit, like in the spaceship design, kind of like creeping across this natural environment. So, I mean, you know, it looks and sounds great. So
yeah, the visuals looked really, really cool. I didn't I that last line that Richard Madden has, I don't know. I didn't find it was
about
supposed to be
being in
funny.
charge of leading the Avengers.
I don't know. Maybe it's
who
just
lead
like
the Avengers now. He could do it. He was like he made a little gag and everybody knew he was kidding or something.
I guess, but like that was supposed to be funny. It's not that it's the joke itself. It was his delivery of the joke. Like I've never seen him in any kind of like comedic role. I know nothing about this movie, so it's hard to imagine where they're going with it. But sometimes in the same way, this is in a different way. Honestly, Captain Marvel, I found the jokes not to be funny in that movie at all. Like the delivery was not great for me. I just felt like some of them kind of like landed flat. Like Samuel L. Jackson and a few of the other characters, I think, did a pretty good job. But all in all, like I didn't find the jokes to stick too much. Like the tone was a little confusing.
The editing was a little off on some of those Captain Marvel jokes.
And so I'm a little like, I don't know, overly cautious about it. But like when he made that joke, I'm like, oh no, it's Captain Marvel all over again.
Well, it's a lot of people who are, none of these people are known for their comedic chops who are in this right now, other than I guess Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be comedic, but typically speaking, Marvel movies have always had a little levity to them, you know?
Yeah. And this one, Chloe Zhao, obviously not 2 movies in. I guess there was some laughs to be had, I suppose, in Nomadland, but on the whole, a fairly emotionally a lot of pathos in that movie.
Okay.
And I don't know if Marvel comes through and says we got to make sure jokes are a thing around here. We got to make sure we have some humor. I just have no idea. But based on the trailer, there's at least one attempt at a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although based on the trailer, who knows if we'll even see it? I feel like half the Marvel trailers we get now are just like footage that don't make it into the movie.
Cutting room floor stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least what they do like usually have is it works. So
that's true.
Aggressive editing.
By the time it gets by the time it gets to the and Chloe Zhao is a Oscar-winning director. I trust her instincts.
Oh yeah.
But I don't always know if I trust Marvel to keep their hands to themselves when it comes to getting these.
Yeah.
But so far, based on one trailer in, this definitely looks. If I saw it, I would say this is not. Nobody would say that's a Marvel movie, if not for having the actual Marvel logo in there. I don't think.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I would say that about any other teaser. Yeah. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I can't believe it's coming out in November. That feels very soon.
I know, it's crazy.
Considering we just got our first look at it.
I feel like us Cape Town people, we all don't really have we're not like super excited. We're not having negative feels. We're just like, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
As somebody who's read a lot of comics, Eternals for me are still a little bit of a question mark. Like this is not a well-known property, even to people who read. I think a lot of people are going to pretend that they've been big Eternals fans for their entire lives, but those people are lying. These are C-listers at best.
Yeah. If you claim to be a huge Eternals fan, then show me your Jack Kirby tattoo. It's like
it would be. Which it is like Jack Kirby's kind of final comic book magnum opus. So it has a lot of comic book credentials in terms of its creation power.
Right.
But the Cape Town Eternals episode will take a lot of research on our parts because there's really just not a lot of Eternals comics even out there right now for you to read up on. Which is cool because I think it gives Marvel a lot more creative freedom because they don't have to cater to so many fan interests about these things. Yeah. They can just kind of take these characters as a little bit of a blank slate and do what they want with them, which is really cool and I'm sure very freeing for them. But it makes it hard to know how it's a different kind of hype. And I think more of the hype is honestly attached to the creative talent behind the camera than there is to the property itself. Yeah. And just the name Marvel. And two really brief notes. The first, we knew this was happening, but it still kind of shocked me that they actually cast Aaron Taylor Johnson to play Kraven in Sony's Spider-Man Without Spider-Man movie verse.
Yeah, and that's it really surprised.
Right I don't know, man. And this isn't anything against Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I feel I have no strong feelings on one way or the other. He's been in movies that I've seen.
Kick-Ass.
Yeah, which I
love Kick-Ass.
The first one,
he's good in that. Yeah,
the first one was great.
Yeah,
I like that first one. And then he was an Avenger for a movie, and
he took down Godzilla.
He took down Godzilla. And now he's going to be Kraven the Hunter, who is a legitimately I think very cool Spider-Man villain. And I'm kind of bummed that he's getting deployed in this thing and not in any upcoming MCU connected movies. Or maybe these are connected to the MCU. I truly don't know how they're playing this hand, but yeah, a choice is probably the best way to put it, Hannah. Talk about not knowing how to feel about a movie.
Yeah, that is definitely not the actor I would pick for this character. Not that I'm super well versed in Kraven comics, but I will say that, or his stories, but I mean, optically speaking, it's a leap. I feel like maybe
I kind of in my mind see somebody a little more virile or something. Just a little more.
All I see is Danny Trejo.
Adam Driver would be. I'm sure they called Adam Driver, and I'm sure the agent didn't even bother picking up the phone.
I will say though, the director of Kraven the Hunter movie is J.C. Shandor. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, and he's made some really good movies. So it could be that.
What else is he? What's
maybe this will be cool. He made All Is Lost,
which I do like.
Yeah, the Robert Redford movie, and then he directed Margin Call, which I really like.
And I didn't see
about the
Margin
financial
Call.
crisis.
Oh, you would.
It's really good. It's really good. And then he directed A Most Violent Year with Adam Driver, which is very good. It's a gangster movie from the 80s. Yeah. Sorry, Oscar Isaac, not Adam Driver.
That was
Oscar
good.
Isaac and
I did
Jessica
like
Chastain.
A Most Violent Year. Yeah, that was very good.
And then he directed Triple Frontier, which is not good. Oscar Isaac is in it, which
the
is
Netflix one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah. It's not very good. But, they tried.
But the odds are in his favor.
Okay. I'm back. I'm I would say cautiously on board.
Yeah.
I want to see how I want to see what Kraven looks like. I think that's the thing. It's like the first shots from this from the production are going to be, we're going to really pick those apart here. I look
If he doesn't have the absolutely fabulous giant lion split down the middle going all the way to, then what are you doing? Like there's only one costume for Kraven. It's pretty easy to get right. All you need is a dead lion.
Yeah.
And
make it into a bolero and you've got Kraven.
Yeah. And I think he has, if I remember correctly, like leopard print leggings that he wears, which you gotta have those. Yeah. And so I honestly, if they get the costume right, I can forgive a lot about the movie.
Yeah.
Who's he gonna hunt though? This is the thing.
Apparently not.
Venom, I guess?
They found something for Venom to do.
Yeah. Or maybe Tobey Maguire will come back and this is their secret.
Well, maybe he already is for the next Spider-Man movie. I don't know. And then we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but we would be remiss to not bring up the fact that Dwayne Johnson did bless us with an Instagram post because he's currently filming the Black Adam movie, which I'm like super pumped about. He's been attached to this movie since I think like 2004 or 5 when they first started talking about doing this, because he obviously just looks the part of Black Adam. He's got, and if you got Dwayne Johnson looking the part of superhero, you got to cast him for it. And so he posted an Instagram of him working out, of him getting in superhero shape for this. And it's just really, if you haven't seen it, I don't know that anything we say can really do it justice to what Dwayne Johnson's always big. He could probably just walk in and play a superhero in most movies, but he's taken himself to a level that honestly I didn't really know people could get to.
Yeah. Very veiny, much bulk.
I don't know if I've ever seen somebody
all around
like this.
No. Yeah. And I follow his Instagram account pretty closely. You got
it. For research purposes.
Yeah.
Well, you got a podcast.
So, he's always, he's very passionate about his gym time.
That's true.
But I was a little worried. He looked very tired in that picture. He looked like he maybe did not take enough, electrolyte gummies or whatever it is. No. That's an accusation to throw out.
I don't know. I don't know anything.
It's a plant-based supplement.
That's what I would need. That's what I would need to look like Dwayne Johnson. No, there's not enough growth hormone in the world. I would not look like that like he does.
Yeah.
But he made also a very big to-do about how this was all very scientifically moderated, because he's supposed to look... I think he's supposed to look like kind of has the very dry, kind of cracked look with all the veins that you can see, which I think takes, if I understand it right, you're not supposed to hydrate very much. So I'm sure this is really good for you.
Yeah. What if they're going like a full Rob Liefeld art
He looks
style?
like a Rob Liefeld, but he really does look like a Rob.
So he'll just have tiny feet covered in pouches and bulging veins.
Yeah, pouches all over the Black Adam costume.
Yeah. I think my main thought when I saw the picture is I just don't want him to hurt himself if he wants to come back to the Fast and the Furious franchise, which is my superhero crossover event.
The Jurassic Park one?
No, the Fast and the Furious ones.
Yeah, which they are. Apparently, there's rumors that the Fast franchise wants a crossover.
Oh yeah,
Park franchise, obviously,
but they still have to do 10 and 11 and Fast and the Furious before they can wrap that up. So
maybe Dwayne is actually training to become a dinosaur.
Oh, that could be.
That's what's happening, because that would make sense. I see it now.
That's the way that they'll take it. The family will take him down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't watch Fast and Furious movies. Ryan always, whenever.
Oh, you'll have a great. Oh, you guys would love them. You'll have a great time. They're so much fun.
I don't. I have watched them. I just.
Hannah's husband and I have watched them several times together, I think.
Yes, it's a beautiful bonding experience,
I'm
sure. And I respect people. I let people enjoy things. Okay, I watch Outlander. It's fine. All right.
Yeah.
But I just can't get into those. I like flashy action movies. But anyway, I hope he's healthy. Big fan of The Rock.
Yeah.
But
Stay
drink some
well,
water,
Dwayne.
man.
Yeah.
It has never been truer of any franchise that you got to stick with it with the Fast and Furious franchise. You really have to make it through almost half of it before it gets good, and that's 5 movies.
It's just like,
that's no mean feat. So
just read Wikipedia for 1 through
commitment.
4, and then
All right. Well, maybe one day when I have that many hours of free time available to
you
me,
might have to get the kids
I'll make that
graduated.
happen. Yeah, exactly. When my kids are 40, I'll do it. And then those will be classic. Those will be on TCM probably at that point.
Yeah,
So
they'll be well into the Jurassic Park crossover by that point.
Oh yeah. Okay, I have a question for you guys. I don't think we've talked about this show. I'm going to throw in a curveball. Have you guys seen Invincible?
Yes, I finished it.
Have we talked about this yet?
I've only seen 1 episode. I don't think we have either.
It's outside of it's an Image comic that is on Amazon Prime, I believe, right? Have you finished it, Hannah?
No, I've only watched the first episode, and holy cow.
Yeah.
Kind of shook me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That final like couple minutes in the first one is a lot.
Yeah. It was in the way like Harley Quinn on HBO Max is violent and, crass and all those things. But like, oh my gosh, the last couple minutes of that episode 1 were incredibly violent. Does it continue throughout the rest of the
I would say pretty much every
season?
episode has at least one scene of fairly shocking violence.
If it's renewed for another season?
It's been renewed for 2 more seasons, I think.
Oh my gosh, so it's been
at
a hit.
least.
I feel like we kind of have to talk about that.
We could do an episode on it actually. I would say that having finished it and have not read the comics, even though I know they're very well regarded. I know people are big fans of those. I thought the show ended quite well. I thought it was very well written, and as shocking as the violence is, it does seem like they are trying to use the violence in a way. I think they are more successfully doing the sort of thing that Zack Snyder is trying to do, which is show how easily these kind of godlike characters can become removed or a little bit distant from the problems of the people they're supposed to be protecting, to the point where violence starts to get a little desensitized to them a little bit, and they're not able to control the collateral damage from the actions they're doing. And in some cases, they do that pretty powerfully in the Invincible show and have some really emotional moments, especially towards the end. But you do need a strong stomach for a lot of it, because there's some pretty gross stuff that happens on the way there.
No, it didn't feel flippant the way they used it or anything. At least
no, it's not. It's really not. Whereas I'd say the Harley Quinn violence is quite flippant. They're using it as a gag.
Yeah.
And they do say, I would say they take violence quite seriously in Invincible. Violence has a collateral and even emotional effect on the people who commit violent acts, or in some cases it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it's quite chilling. Complicated show to talk about, and I'm not sure I trust myself to give it the review that I think it deserves. But coming off of it, I would say I'm a fan. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to season 2.
It could be curious to have a discussion about Invincible and The Boys. I feel like they both kind of tackle.
Yeah, they come from the same. Cut from the same.
I know you're a big fan.
It's weird that Amazon is like the home of deconstructed superhero shows now.
They've got at least those 2.
Yeah.
I guess Jeff Bezos is just kind of. He must not know it's on his own channel.
I don't want to draw a connection there. I don't want to give him any credit for any of that.
I think he just signs. I don't think he
look
signs
if he
the
wants
check.
to. If he wants to advertise with us, though, we welcome it. Sure.
Mr. Bezos. Yeah. If you're listening, we'll take.
But I know he's not. There's no way he's in those meetings. Being like, more blood.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think Rogen isn't he? I think he's involved with both of them. Seth Rogen, possibly even. I know he produced The Boys.
Yeah,
and he's a voice on Invincible, but I don't know if he's involved creatively beyond just being cast in
The
it.
Weed, the book, Seth Rogen,
the busiest man in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So we should probably now, about 20 minutes in, we want to talk about. I'm actually really excited been excited to talk about this episode about Loki, because he has such a weird trajectory as a character, both in the movies and in the comic books that I don't think he has one of those like, extremely unexpected. You can kind of tell that nobody at any point really saw the next era of Loki coming, and they just had to pivot based on, it seems like a lot of times on fan reactions to how much they enjoyed the character and trying to figure out how to make this character become what people wanted him to be. And I think a lot of times that's actually, that could feel very reactionary. But for the most part has been pretty actually rewarding creatively with a lot of the stories that have been told. So I actually want to start, even though I know we've read a few comics, the first thing I wanted to ask you guys about is on the eve of Loki's, of Tom Hiddleston's Disney Plus series, why do you think this character, who was kind of originally a one-off villain for the first Thor movie, has become such a popular mainstay of the MCU and of pop culture at large? Do you have any idea what to attribute that to?
Well, I think that he is a character who's existed outside of comics, for hundreds of years before he was ever, made into something like, pop culture makes him unique.
So like ancient religion did the heavy lifting of making him.
Well, it already gave him, there was already like some kind of like, he was already like a notorious figure, in a historical sense, I suppose. And then I feel like his character evolved quite a bit. If like you go from like, when he started like Journey into Mystery the first time Journey into Mystery, like 1963 or something.
Yeah.
Like before, like the, when he was into Thor, very like the way he's changed, the way that they've evolved the villain, and they've had fun with him too, where he doesn't just stay like this kind of like evil mastermind. Like I don't think you've ever seen, in my experience, I don't think you've seen a character kind of evolve with culture the way that he has.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think he, like a lot of Marvel villains, started out as a pretty stock character. Like he was always like kind of cracking his fingers and being like, I'd like to see Thor get out of this one, and then Thor does, and it's all over. But he more than a lot of villains has evolved and changed, and he's really been on every part of the what do they call that gradient of chaotic neutral to through. Like you can at some point in his journey put him on pretty much every square in there.
It's totally true. I was like, is he chaotic neutral? Is he just pure chaos?
Is he actually malevolent? And he's really been, he started out definitely like very one-dimensionally he's just a big bad guy. And he's probably, you would still call him a villain in most of his appearances, or at least self-interested in most of his appearances, even if he has some sort of, even if those interests accidentally kind of become like saving the world or rescuing somebody. I don't know how often he's ever done anything that you would call straight up heroic.
No, because it has to serve his interests. I mean, he's all about Loki. He's a vain, selfish.
I think the comics have done it. Like, I mean, it's interesting you're asking this question because I feel like the movie trajectory has been similar to the comics in that. I think a big part of it, is Tom Hiddleston's performance. I think it's Loki. Like, I've been rewatching the first Thor movie, and it's clear like he's in a better movie than most everyone else is, because he's great. He's having a blast, and I think it took a little bit, and that's not to take away from Chris Hemsworth or obviously Anthony Hopkins, but I think he just got the character really well. But I think the interesting thing with Loki that I think continues to bring him back. And Hannah, you touched on this, that like the relationship exists already outside of comics, but I think the key to it is the Thor Loki relationship. And so the audience, I think, isn't allowed ever to totally hate Loki because Thor never does. So I think, even in those moments when Loki is like strict villain or chaotic evil, like somehow Thor always finds it in his heart to forgive him and like have him try again or something like that, even when it's awful. And I think, there are moments like one of the, I was reading through the Kieran Gillen run with Loki, with Journey into Mystery, where Loki features pretty heavily. And I think that's just like, it's a really interesting move because it did something similar, I think, that the movies where it kind of like, it kind of begins with Loki being, this villainous character, and then kind of having to reset it and be like, oh, wait, people really like him and Thor really likes him, so we're going to bring him back as something more complicated and shaded than just the villain.
Yeah, that's a good point, because sorry, Tyler, because not only does Thor love Loki, but Loki has a love for Thor that he can't quite shake either. And Thor is a very flawed character. I mean, and there's this kind of animosity there that feels totally natural, with siblings, this kind of, I don't want to call it a troubled childhood, but Loki feels very much alone. I feel like that's kind of a big part of who he is, as a fully formed adult. He still harbors those feelings of resentment and kind of neglect,
right?
From his childhood.
And I think that at the character's best, Loki is expressing that he does not feel as welcome as everybody thinks they're making him feel in the Asgardian royal family as the Odin son. Because he knows that he's always going to be a little bit removed. And it seems like nobody ever really validates that and says, well, yeah, of course you don't feel welcome here because you have this very strange, twisted legacy of being half frost giant. And that's I think that's a completely valid thing for him to feel and to express. And it makes a lot of sense that would create a lot of resentment that could manifest in some global domination schemes if you're the god of mischief, and when Thor just tries to write that off as somebody like Thor would, as a very not terribly emotionally wise person like Thor would, just say, no, what are you talking about? Of course we let you in here. Then he continues to not really feel seen. But I think you're right, both in the sense that he. If Thor and Loki didn't at some point express a little bit of love for each other, then we as readers wouldn't necessarily know how to feel about them either. And the fact that Thor still believes there's something in Loki that's worth saving and loving, occasionally rescuing, then I'm glad we saw that happen a lot before we started to understand why that might be. Before we saw a side of Loki that would maybe be worth saving or feel redeeming. Which didn't really happen in the movies until, I guess you kind of saw it a little bit in The Dark World.
Yeah, there's some stuff in Dark World that was...
I'm not a huge fan of that movie, but I would say Tom Hiddleston really owned his role in that movie quite well. And then obviously in Ragnarok, he becomes pretty much a anti-hero and fights with the good guys by the end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even in that one, I was thinking about that. There's still the scene where... he essentially tries to double cross his brother several times in that movie. And so I think,
they have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. And I think those are my favorite Loki moments, or when it's still a little adversarial. But you sense that there's some kind of deeper relationship there.
Are you guys okay? This is maybe just a little bit of a tangent question, but I am curious. He obviously, and this is a spoiler for Endgame, or for Infinity War rather, which I assume everybody who's listening to this podcast has seen, but it is a spoiler for Infinity War, where he obviously dies and then comes back, apparently to the point where he's able to get his own TV show, which is the only one of those deaths where there was some sort of retcon that felt to me a little bit... He got a really great send-off, and the fact that they're bringing him back again is the only one that rubbed me maybe a little bit the wrong way and felt a little bit... I felt was maybe a little bit cheap in the idea of sacrifice. But we'll see what happens with the TV show. But if the show is great, then I'll allow it.
I mean, I don't think so, because that Loki's still dead.
Yeah, I guess I know what you mean.
So, I mean, and I know this is a very comic book, but it's okay. But
we're going to say it.
Yeah. But I mean, it is that Loki is still dead, presumably. Because, I mean, if you haven't seen the trailer, presumably it's being set up by that scene in Endgame where a past version of Loki escapes with...
He gets the Tesseract.
He gets the Tesseract.
In a failed attempt to get that.
Yeah.
And he's in the wind.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the one hand, his sacrifice, I guess, is cheapened a little bit, but it's also not that Loki. So who knows if... Because in that moment, I mean, to your point, Tyler, we hadn't seen him be anything but a villain yet. So...
Yeah.
Maybe he's just a bad guy, and we don't know.
Yeah, I guess
Plus,
that's
I
true.
am a sucker for all multiverse hijinks, and this sounds
Yeah,
great.
I
so.
am too. Give me
They're
more.
taking us there.
Yeah.
I like how messy, based on the trailers that we've seen, I like how messy this show is getting.
Yeah.
And I like that we're finally getting Owen Wilson in the MCU. It took us long enough,
Yeah.
but we're there
Yeah.
now. The important
I
thing
will
is that it
say-
happened.
I do think it'll feel a little bit cheap, again, in kind of a comic book way, if like somehow his memories, like the main MCU's memories are like infused into the new one or something.
Somebody, like,
where they do
touches
one
his
of those
head, like,
yeah, exactly.
remember,
Or-
and-
yeah, they do one of those like, oh, your soul was separated, but now it's back. Like, so I hope they don't
I'm
do
okay with
that.
that.
But yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Why else do we read comics? Come on. If that wasn't if we didn't have that gift, I don't know if we would be we would enjoy this as much, because there's always a rebirth and there's a new story to tell.
yeah. I mean, I think. I mean, I also think it's different in. For some reason, and maybe I haven't really thought this through, so this might be really stupid. But I do think there's a difference between comics versus movies, though, right? Because in comics, it's essentially a never-ending soap opera. You never know. Those characters can always come back. They're eternally that age. Whereas I think in the movies, we see characters age and change naturally because they're humans playing characters. So, I think that does lend itself a little bit differently just because of the difference in medium. But,
Tom
if they do
Hiddleston's
that,
hair is getting
I'll be
a little
annoyed.
thin up top.
No comment from me.
But speaking of the difference between comics and movies, I do want to talk about the comics that you all have read over because we've been tackling different Loki stories.
Yeah.
Okay. Which are a surprising number for a villain.
Yeah. Did any of you guys read Blood Brothers?
No,
I did not.
I actually don't even know what that is.
It was, I believe what it was Rob Roddy did a run of Thor, and then they flipped it and they did a story through Loki's perspective. And it's Thor and Loki Blood Brothers, and it's beautifully illustrated.
I'm looking at it now, and this art is really this art is gorgeous.
Yeah, Assad Rybick. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Yeah.
What a talented guy. It's gorgeous. And it is an exceptional story. In terms of what we were talking about earlier with that complicated relationship with Thor and Loki, it dives into it, fully. That's kind of what it's all about. And it is so well written. I loved it. In fact, that's why I was late, because I was finishing it. And it's so, so good.
I'm kind of shocked I've never even heard of this story, because I'm looking at this artwork now, and this is really spectacular. This is just beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And I like Esad Ribic, but this even feels like he's on a different level. What a find. So the basic story is it tells two stories, or one story through two different perspectives?
This one is pure. The one I read was all Loki. I think that there's a run where it's just, typically going through Thor's, perspective. But I don't want to spoil too much about it since you guys haven't read it, but Loki's taken over Asgard. He's imprisoned Odin. He's imprisoned Thor, and he is utterly tormented with the fact that power and reign has not come naturally to him. He can't seem to get his handle on ruling the Asgard, and I don't think most other runs I've read with Loki have not been you've not seen such a dramatic tormented version of him, and in this oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it without spoiling everything, but the ending is amazing. It is worth it. It's an easy read for an afternoon. Go for it. It'll be worth it.
Oh, I can't wait. I might dive into it tonight. What a great podcast for recommendations about what comics to read.
Yeah.
This is great.
Esad, and I think I don't know if it's Rybick or Ribic. I'm afraid I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah, it's Croatian.
But he was the artist for most of Jason Aaron's very well regarded Thor run through most of the 2000s, honestly.
Yeah, this was in
And,
2011, so it was probably around
Okay, so it could have been a
same
part of
time.
that or a spinoff
It
of that at
was.
some point.
It was,
Right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see. And Rebecca's now on the current Eternals series as Marvel starts to grease the wheels for the Eternals come. So if you
That'd be cool. Yeah.
he's very good at drawing these sort of mythic characters in extremely godlike poses. He really likes the idea of creating these larger than life figures who have this almost kind of literally eternal quality to them.
And his Loki does not look like the Loki from the MCU or even most of the other iterations. Like he's kind of gross looking.
He's like almost a sinister kind of diabolical character.
Well, he looks like he comes from Jotunheim, I guess. He's got that tall, very much taller, thinner. He's his complexion is not what it he doesn't look like someone from Asgard. He definitely looks different, and he's got kind of very toothy, but missing teeth too. So it's definitely not like any of the other iterations of Loki you've seen. So, which is fun. It's different.
And that's all on Marvel Unlimited. People who want to check it out.
I believe it is. I bought a few. I know that the Rob Roddy run is definitely all up there. I'm not sure if this one is, but it might be. I'm sorry, that's not very helpful information for everyone. I bought it for $6.99 on Comixology. So
that's a bargain.
Yeah.
That's 2 Big Macs and fries. You can do this. Yeah.
It is one grande flat white. No, but it was superb, honestly, and I don't say that about a lot of comics, but it was superb. Really good.
Blood Brother. I'll put a link into the show notes to where people can go buy it and read it legally themselves. Ryan, what did you get into?
So I was trying to find a good jumping on point because I haven't read a lot of Thor or a lot of Loki, obviously, and I'd remembered and then I came across this and then remembered kind of the reading it probably 10 years ago at this point. But a lot of people said that their favorite run with Loki is starting at the end of Siege, kind of that big crossover event.
Yeah.
I think that Bendis wrote back in the either late 2000s or early 2010s. And so if you remember, and sorry for spoiling a decade-old comic, but so at the end of Siege, Loki's kind of responsible for the destruction of Asgard. It ends up dying in the process. And so that then leads into a new series of Thor written by Matt Fraction, which then segues into Journey into Mystery by Kieran Gillen. And during the Thor run, Thor resurrects Loki in the body of a kid, so he becomes Kid Loki.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. So it's really well written. It's obviously super high fantasy and great. Half of Journey into Mystery takes place in the various regions of hell. But I think something I really appreciated that this series does is track kind of that push and pull between Loki being good and trying to potentially redeem himself while not being sure where his status is. And I think something that they do really interestingly in Journey into Mystery is the previous Loki, who is kind of positioned as much more of a villain, really chaos incarnate. He comes back, but not as a person. He comes back as a bird that Kid Loki can kind of command to do various things. So it sets up this really interesting dichotomy between the two of them, this Loki that's sort of learning the ropes, and then this Loki that's sort of, really, really damaged by everything. I also read the 4-issue miniseries, Loki, I think from 2010. It was published, and that was written by Sebastian, that's the penciler. I'm not sure who wrote this, so I apologize to the creators. But the penciler was Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, which I'm probably butchering, so I apologize. And and that one I think is also a good one, Hannah, similar to the one you mentioned, because it kind of takes place outside of all this stuff going on in the Marvel universe, and it's just sort of this separate event. And I think, sometimes, and this is where Loki can be difficult to talk through, is just like, the Olympian counterparts, there are a lot of like Norse gods, and their relationships are extremely confusing. So that one gets into that a little bit more in, I think, a really interesting way. But I think like there's a lot to love in those series if you're, at all a fan of mythology or kind of the complicated machinations of various gods and goddesses. So there's a lot of fun stuff there.
It's Roberto Aguirre Sacasa.
Thank you.
So that, it's okay.
Yeah.
So that one probably didn't roll off the tongue for you. But yeah, I've heard that one. And it's 4. It's an easy.
Yeah, it's just a little 4. Yeah, just a little 4 one.
Lots of miniseries. Lots of very easy. If you're looking to get into Loki, it's a pretty manageable. Like some of the Thor runs are obviously extremely long.
Yes.
And
yeah.
A lot of his runs really do more than even most Marvel characters. Writers like to take him on for long periods of time, which makes jumping on a little more difficult sometimes, but also his stuff is pretty far removed from the rest of the stuff that's happening in the universe. So you can kind of just pick one up and plow through it it just might take you a few weeks.
Can we also talk about the Thor font and how it sucks to read?
We talked about it in the text message.
This is my hot take. Like, I hate they always make Thor and all the gods of all the gods of Asgard have this like typeface that is extremely hard to read. Just put it in normal comic font. It's fine. Anyway, that's my
Isn't it supposed to communicate that they're like speaking in sort of the high tone or something?
All you have to do is on the first page, you put a little asterisk and you just say translated from the high tongue. It's super easy.
It is. It's a little distracting sometimes. Sometimes I don't mind it, and like if I'm like alone in a room, like sometimes I read it in like a British.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I absolutely read. If I'm alone, I read them out. I read them out loud.
It's so fun.
Wow.
I'll cast different characters too. I'll cast.
This is a real confession time.
Big time. I'm all about it.
I totally did that with Blood Brothers. It was great. Okay, and also, didn't Loki make an appearance in the Miss Marvel run several years ago? Wasn't he in a few issues of that?
I believe that's true.
That was a really fun interaction. I love that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Was he still teen Loki at that point?
Was that Ryan?
Was he still teen Loki at that point?
No.
Okay. Because I was just like, because after Journey into Mystery, then he joins the Young Avengers. Oh yeah, and then I also read Vote for Loki, which is fine, but I can't read anything about the 2016 election because it's just like not fun. So
it's over.
Trigger alert.
We don't need to go back to
we don't have to go there. Yeah,
ancient history.
But yeah, it is funny because he does have like so many like comedic kind of moments in the comics, and then utter just like depravity and kind of like, I don't know, like turmoil and others. It's very, it goes all over the place. So it depends on what mood you're in that day, really. I mean, have your pick. Tyler, what about you? What did you read?
Yeah, so I actually went back a little bit, and I read a run that I kind of always wanted to read, but had never really dug into. And it's a classic that I think a lot of people would consider one of the better Marvel runs ever. And it's Walt Simonson's Thor run, which started in the 80s. And lasted up till, I believe, 90 is when it stopped. He wrote Walt Simonson and his wife Louise Simonson were kind of like major players at Marvel during this era. She was really influential on Claremont's X-Men series and the New Mutants, kind of helping make the X-Men who we know that, kind of reforming them from being a like group of teen youths at a school into being more of the X-Men as we think of them now, with Wolverine and Nightcrawler and Colossus. And Walt was there he was really kind of her helper for a while, her assistant, and then he got a crack at Thor, and it became very, very definitive. So his Loki was still a few years before his Loki was could kind of play either side, like we've been talking about. Could maybe he's pretty definitively a bad guy through most of this run. But what I really do like about this run and this Loki in particular is how playful it really is. This is not a Thor run that takes itself very seriously, and it's got
frog.
a few. The frog is his legacy. So there is a pretty lengthy run that I think runs a couple of years. Probably, I mean, obviously, I read it in about a weekend. But Loki turns Thor into a frog, and he becomes the ruler of Asgard in the meantime. And finally, Frog Thor finds his own miniature Mjolnir, and so he becomes Thor again, but he is still a frog with the hammer and the winged helmet. Does
he find a swamp to rule?
And then he gets involved in this Central Park fight between the frogs and the rats. He becomes like the hero of the frogs and taking
great.
down. And it's absolutely spectacular writing. It's so much fun, and it's very, very, which a lot of comics were not doing at the time. They were moving towards more edgy stuff. It was getting
Frank Miller.
weirder and darker, and Punisher and Daredevil were really moving that direction. And in the meantime, Thor is going both high fantasy and extremely like almost childlike, like storybook types of, and he navigated it really, really well. So Loki in this is definitely the villain, but he's a villain it feels more like a Disney villain, maybe a character who is definitely out for his own ends, but is not just looking to rule the world or bloodshed on a human genocide level, but is just looking to be literally a god of mischief, like pull crazy godlike pranks that only he can pull, just because he likes causing trouble and chaos and giving people a hard time. And really, it's aged really, really well. If you have any interest in going back to some of the older, sometimes reading those old comics, art can be a little bit of a hindrance because it wasn't as good at the time in many cases. But this is, I think, quite good. And I flew through it. It also has the great Walter Simonson is behind the introduction of Beta Ray Bill, who is one of my favorite, low-key one of my favorite kind of obscure Marvel characters. He's a horse-faced alien who, and he shows up in Walter Simonson's first Thor, his first issue of Thor. This horse-faced weirdo alien proves worthy of picking up Thor's hammer and becomes Thor for like a while in the comics. And Don Blake is just walking around with his old walking stick. And that's also just it's a really great flex that undermines the idea that only Thor could, which at the time had been nobody else, to my knowledge, had wielded Thor's hammer or proven worthy of it. So for this brand new character who looks ridiculous to pick it up was definitely a choice. And I enjoyed that too. So this would be, if you want some really good classic Loki and Thor lore, then this is all on Marvel Unlimited, and really can't recommend it strongly enough. And it proved very, very influential to the future Thor and Loki eras as well. I liked it a lot. It was great.
That's like on the list of most, like, I feel like popular, famous Loki runs is.
I think that even if you looked up like greatest
iconic
Marvel Comics runs of all time, a lot of times that pops up near the top. It's a very well regarded. So I felt kind of embarrassed that it's kind of like having a Led Zeppelin podcast and having never listened to House of the Holy. You got to get to it. So I felt a little silly for me to be here having not read that.
Well, neither have I. So I will also add too that in some of the earlier Loki comics, like going back in A Journey into Mystery, if you have kids who are interested in reading comics, or maybe it was Journey into Mystery, there's a few scenes with Loki where, this is his early rendition, and he's, like he's just kind of foolishly going after Thor, and he's attacking him with pigeons. I don't like. He's like, I'll take him down. Like the pigeons will fly around him and confuse him, and all these crazy things. And then he goes to the city, and he's just trying to, create chaos. And he turns all the human beings into negatives of themselves. And then he goes to another city, and he turns up like all the cars into ice cream and candy. and all the people are like, my car is melting, and it's just so silly. But I just felt like my kids would love this. So I feel like if you're looking for a great kind of innocent, just pure comic story to share with your children
for the kids.
Yeah, that'll be some good summer reading.
Yeah, I feel like they would be delighted with that. It was super fun.
That's good, especially since a lot of the Thor and Loki stories a lot of the Asgard stories can get very horny. I feel like it's a very a lot of like these are very sexually charged stories in a lot of ways. Sometimes explicitly, and sometimes it's right under the surface, and you can tell it's there, but they're not saying anything.
And sometimes like really violent. I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about it, but it's like, I mean, you have the existence of Hela essentially, and then this entire race of like undead Viking soldiers who are cannibals eating the souls of the dead. So it's, and then constantly kind of the specter of Ragnarok lingering over, where just like all the gods will be killed mercilessly.
Which they've actually done over the years a really great job of retaining Ragnarok as all the gods know that they are doomed. Ultimately, that feels like a very important part of the lore that has even in Thor's kind of like ups and downs as a character, because he's had good writers and bad writers over the year. That has been there, and it feels like an important part of his characterization, even up to today. Right now, Don Cates, and I think people know that I'm a big fan of Don Cates, and he's on the current run of Thor, which I think is quite good, and I'm enjoying it a lot. But there is this idea for all of the Asgardian gods that the clock is ticking on their existence and their homeland, and that has a measurable impact on how they act and who they love and how they decide to spend their very long but finite lives. And I appreciate that. That's something that I'd be interested in seeing the movies tackle a little further.
Yeah.
Movies? I don't know if we're getting one after Love and Thunder. I don't know if this is the end of the...
Yeah, who could know? Maybe Beta Ray Bill will be the new Thor.
Oh, I hope Beta Ray Bill is in Love and Thunder.
Taika Waititi could do it. I mean, that
Taika
just feels
totally
right.
Do it.
That's low hanging fruit for him. I mean,
right
come on.
There. It's right there. If they don't do it, I was really pumped when they cast. I can't think of Gladiator.
Russell Crowe?
Yeah, when they cast Russell Crowe in it, because I thought, he would be a great Beta Ray Bill. It makes sense, but then it turns out he's not Beta Ray Bill. So So as long as somebody's Beta Ray Bill, I don't really care who. It could be Kate McKinnon.
Well,
somebody. It doesn't matter.
Waititi, he voiced Krog or Korg.
Yeah, he was
in Ragnarok, and he did a great job. So maybe
he was great.
He can get some more of that action. Yeah, and I want him to, because he was awesome. So
piece of cake,
please.
So we are about out of time. I think that we will. So this is coming out next Friday, and then Wednesday, obviously, you will be able to see. We'll see Loki for the first time. So we'll discuss Loki a little bit when we come back next week, and our thoughts on at least the first episode and how we're feeling about that. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Cape Town Podcast. If you like what you hear here, I do hope that you go and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. You can also find us wherever you cast your pods. We're also on YouTube. If you have any interest in it, we're YouTube influencers now as well. So another easy way for you to connect with us. We also obviously do appreciate all the good reviews. I've seen a lot of new ones come pouring in. Thank you so much for that. Could use a lot more of those as well. Those really do help us continue to do what we do here. And I think with that, we will be... Oh, I do want to give a quick shout out to my man, Justin Mezzell, Hannah's husband. Yeah. It's his birthday today. I'm sure you guys had a big evening planned, and you took a little hour breather for you to come record the podcast. So thank you for that,
putting together a Warhammer model. This is a very nerdy family.
Even so, no, a birthday shout out. He also did all the art. He did all the art for the podcast as well, and that's so thank you very much for that, Justin, and happy birthday. And thank you, Hannah, for slipping out to record a quick podcast for us too. I appreciate that.
Thanks for making it work.
You can follow us on Twitter at Cape Town Pod, or on Facebook and Instagram at Cape Town Podcast. No need for thanks, citizen. I'm Tyler Huckabee.
I'm Hannah Mezzell.
And I'm Ryan Hamm.
We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.